So welcome to the AT Construction Podcast today, and we are very fortunate to have one of my good friends, Mr. Randy Coffin, who's president of Coffin Trout Jewelers. So welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
So Randy and I have been connected for quite some time now, and through many mutual circles, and we run, with a lot of the same colleagues in our profession and outside profession, and that's one of the things that I really love about construction, as I get to meet these very interesting people. And Randy has a lot to offer today that's very unique to a lot of the podcasts we've done, but not only from the creativity and craftsmanship of jewelry, but also the customer service and the quality. And there's a lot of similarities between our industries that run between jewelry and construction that I want to dive into. But before we do that, Randy, with you being the expert and something that's always fascinated me, so from a company standpoint, how does your firm, how does your staff, how do they become experts in grading a diamond?
A lot of it is, Brad, is training. There's different institutions in our country, the main one being the Gemological Institute of America, the GIA. They offer all kinds of training to whomever, and a series of courses, tests, it's pretty grueling. And so I'm fortunate enough in my store I have 2 CGAs, which means Certified Gemologist Appraisers. So a lot of schooling that goes into that. There's probably 5 in the state, CGAs.
And you have 2 of them.
I have 2 of them.
So how does that work? I mean, are there credentials that go to it, I'd imagine? I mean, how are they diving into to really understand, how valid a diamond is or the value of it?
It's really, once again, it's the training. It's learning to look at the diamonds in this case, or colored gemstones, depending on what you're talking about, and understand through their schooling, okay, this is an SI1 grade, for instance. This is an SI2 grade. This is a VVS2. So there's all these different grades that have to do with clarity. And then there's, of course, color, and then cut grade or cutting. And that's true whether we're talking about colored gemstones or we're talking about diamonds. So both are
have their own grading system.
Own system.
Do you ever see discrepancies, though? I mean, if you're going to grade it a certain way, does the CGA grade it differently somewhere else? I mean, is there conflict with that?
Even within our trade. So the Gemological Institute of America, again, GIA, is probably the most prominent or most recognized organization that is a third-party grader that does grading. And those diamonds is pretty much exclusively what I sell. I don't use other people's certifications other than maybe the American Gem Society, AGS. And even there'll be conflicts with my graders and what GIA sends to us, or what we buy from a supplier that has supplied a GIA certificate or grading report with that diamond. And we look at it thinking, how did that get an SI1? It should have been really an SI2, or it should have been a VS2 or whatever. So it's, I know that's a lot of acronyms, but
no, but the intent here, and see, this is what's curious to me. I mean, we of course, in my field, we're not looking at things like, we're not grading lumber or windows, but at the same time, there is a level of quality to the product we're putting in the house, right? But if you apply it to gemstones and diamonds like you are, I guess that would be the difficult part. If you have a supplier coming in with product that says, yeah, it's certified and here's the documentation, and then you're looking at it yourself saying, well, there's a discrepancy here. So how do you resolve that, or how do you get to a point, maybe common ground, where you negotiate that?
Right. So it really is just a matter of accepting it, really. I mean, there is no kind of, there is no way to fight it, with the GIA, so to speak. I mean, if I send a diamond out for grading, for instance, which I did recently, and I didn't agree with the grade, I think it's much lower than it should have been. So they'll do a recheck for a certain amount of money, and they'll have a third grader look at the diamond and determine, yeah, we agree with what we're saying, or no, we're going to switch it to a grade higher. But for the most part, you just either refuse the stone if you're in the midst.
Yeah, because you have that option to purchase it or not.
Right, exactly. Diamonds come to us on memorandum. They come on consignment, so to speak, for a short period of time, and we're able to look and spend our time And in some cases, show it to a customer, let them make a decision before we have to commit to buying that stone.
So explain that for anyone listening that maybe not understand that term consignment or how that works. How is that process for you and a customer?
It's with the customer, it's a matter of saying, hey, you know what? I understand we don't have exactly what you're looking for. We understand you don't want to make a financial commitment. So we have the ability to get the diamonds and our colored stones in on memorandum and at no obligation to you. The only thing cost is the shipping, which we usually pick up anyway. And we'll take a look, see if we like it. And if you want it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. There's no obligation on your part or ours. So, and it makes it kind of nice because then I don't have to stock, millions and millions of dollars worth of
with a product for the hope that someone's going to walk through the door and purchase that or customize it.
Because it can sit for years in some cases.
And if you're paying that money up front, then that's investment in dollars that aren't realized.
No different than your trade.
Yeah.
Same way,
It'd be like me storing a lot of product that I can't sell in that inventory for any company in manufacturing or development, whatever it may be. I mean, it costs money to carry the overhead, to secure it, maintain it.
Yeah. I got plenty of other
and
places
theft.
to spend money. Yeah, theft, exactly. Yeah, it's a these little items, right?
Yeah,
that we
can walk away
track
quickly.
Of. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting business from that standpoint.
It's a lot harder still a multi-slider window, than it is a little gem. I mean there's some challenge there.
But what's pretty amazing is, and this has kind of always been this way in our industry, is how much trust there is. So. I'll call Israel, for instance, and to a supplier I've never talked to before, but because of my reputation or whatever, they'll send a diamond that's worth, call it $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 through just a couple simple checks, on their part. And, it's a lot of trust to put forth to somebody without ever even having met them or talked to them.
So let's talk about that, because I think reputation is important to any company. If they're looking at solidifying their business, a lot of people maybe take that shortcut to make $1 or, the financial reward today. But if you think long-term reputation, I mean, how do you build that credibility over the years you've been in business in your profession?
Right. With those suppliers, it's really just a matter of minding your P's and Q's and making sure that you're a good payer, that you're paying your bills on time. And, that word gets out there because it's a small world when we talk about suppliers in our business. And if you get that reputation, good luck getting product. There's also an organization called the JBT, Jewelers Board of Trade, and they kind of manage that whole thing. And they get credit reports from retailers, wholesalers, others, and then they rate them based on their ability to pay, their practices, how they do pay, are they timely, are they not. So that's part of it too. We have obviously the best rating you can have with the Jewelers Board of Trade, which
is really important.
Yeah, it's important. I'm proud of it. It means we've done a really good job managing our business and managing our bills and pay people on time.
So would a supplier in Israel, as you mentioned, if they're going to say, okay, we're going to advance you a $60,000 diamond to show your customer the potential to customize, are they going to look up that JBT
They'll
report?
look up the JBT, and then they'll ask for references from other diamond dealers, and you provide those names and numbers, and they call those people. But it's amazing to me how little background checking they do, and
for someone you've never met to ship that to another country.
I know. Yeah, it's like you may never see it again. but once again, that happens, and you do that to somebody. It's only going to happen so many times before
you don't get diamonds in your secure supply chain,
right? Yeah.
So going back to the diamond, you have diamonds are graded on cut, color, clarity, and carat. Right. So what's the most important to you, or what do you look for?
So I don't know if this is going to help, but you could even look at it if you want. And it's really has to do with the cut grade. The cut grade is the most important feature in a diamond, and that's something that most stores aren't going to talk about that much because it's too difficult to kind of explain it and have people understand it, when in fact, in my mind, it's really not that difficult. But everybody talks about clarity and color, and those two are important. But really, for me, the cut grade or the what that translates into is the most important feature in a diamond. And it has to do with light performance, because the way light works in a diamond, everybody thinks you have to have all this light behind a diamond. in order to make it brilliant, but that's not the case at all. That's not how light works in a diamond. It's the light passing through the top of the diamond, bounces off the back, and back out through the top. And if a diamond is cut too deep or too shallow, instead of that light coming back out of the top, it bleeds through the bottom of the diamond. So once again, when I am shopping for diamonds, or I'm looking for diamonds for our inventory, I look at when I open the diamond paper up and look at it for the first time, I know instantly whether or not I'm interested in that diamond or not, based solely on the light performance and the brilliance of the diamond, which is created because of how the cutter proportioned it and cut it. Correct. So that's first and foremost. Next to me is color or lack thereof. So colorless is ideal, right? So you don't want any tint, like tinted windows. You don't want any tint of color, whether it be yellow, brown, whatever. You really want just as clear as it can be. Higher colors are important to me, and then that cut grade first. And then third is the clarity. So to me, clarity is very important for from a couple standpoints. One, you don't want to have any eye visible inclusions to your naked eye. Secondly, you don't want to have anything that's going to affect that light performance or that, the way light works in the diamond. And then thirdly, you don't want any kind of endurance issues. So if there's a durability issue, like a inclusion or a feather that's in the side of the diamond where it can be struck and could cleave or cause a bigger problem with the diamond, that's also. But once you get past those factors, then really spending money for a flawless or a VVS, which means very, very slight inclusions, or even VS, very slight inclusions, spending the extra dollars to get into those clear grades isn't all that important to me, because once again, it doesn't affect beauty. It does affect price, however, quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, how savvy are your customers when they come in for, clarity or cut? Do they have a good understanding, or can most people visualize the difference there between the diamonds?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people come in with the idea in their head that they want, like say a decolored flawless, and we kind of have to, and if they want that, no problem. I can supply it all day long.
But there's a premium, right?
Oh, there's a huge premium. Yeah. So it's important to kind of work them through that process so that they understand that dropping down to, say, even as far as SI2 and clarity, which is a long way down that scale, but maintaining great cut grade and nice color, which can be, in my mind, clear down to even J color, which is still in the near colorless category, can make a significant difference. And when I hold the two side by side and have them look at them, yes, you can see a slight difference. Obviously, between those two, you're going to see some difference. But is it huge enough to pay that huge premium for that quality? So it's really a matter. My business partner, Dave Trout, who unfortunately we lost in 2009, used to do something with customers all the time where he'd get 3 or 4 diamonds in, and he'd line them up. And he wouldn't line them in a particular category, any particular way. He would just say, "Hey, you pick out the diamond that you like." And this will be somebody that had already said, "Oh, I want H and I want VS and whatever." So they look at him, "I really like that one right there." And so, "Really, you like that one, huh? That's a K color I1 or something." It's like,
right.
So what people think they want and what they probably really want or need is a lot of times different. So.
Well, I think I love that analogy because it's really important for business, right? I mean, I look at it this way that, clients a lot of times may have somewhat of an understanding of construction. They may have a little understanding. Same for you in the jewelry business. It's important for us to communicate, set those expectations, and help them understand. We use the term VE, value engineer, but how, does that correlate? They may have this image in their head, and then as we talk through pricing, they may say, well, maybe we can do an alternative here and do something else. And, the more experience you have, the more knowledge, and the better you can communicate that and lay out the diamonds and say, well, which one speaks to you? And then you can narrow that down for them.
Right. Because it's not always the most expensive, that's going to stand out.
Yeah.
And
sometimes not the best I mean, in our case, sometimes the most expensive won't perform or won't fit the look that they want anyways.
Right.
And the look they want may be an alternative that's maybe less expensive, which is better for them.
Sure. Exactly.
So going back to that, I mean, right now I know in the world, there's a lot of, I should say it's changing in regard to natural versus creative diamonds.
Yeah.
You know, so explain that and what's happening, you know, that you're seeing.
Yeah. So the whole created diamond thing's been around for a lot of years now, where man decided, you know what, we can actually take all the natural ingredients that a diamond has, put it under a huge amount of pressure and heat, and create diamond, right? So they have gone through that process, and it's finally gotten to a point now where not only has it become that a situation where they can create these diamonds at the same price, for the same price per carat as naturals, but they've actually gone quite a bit below the natural price of diamonds.
And these are man-made or created?
They are created. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, they're totally man-made, totally created. The properties are the same as natural as far as hardness and the look and everything else, but the difference is that it's kind of gotten to a point now where there's a lot of companies getting into it, and it has been over the last several years. So we keep watching the prices fall on those diamonds. So it's simply a matter of the customer understanding that if you use or decide to purchase a created diamond, that the value, you don't know where it's going to be in a few years. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that with naturals you're going to know exactly where it is either, but the history says
that it holds its value to some extent.
To some extent.
There's a certain amount of product out there.
Yeah, even natural over the last 5 years or so has probably dropped, you know, it has dropped in price some for various reasons. But, you know, like I was just reading an article the other day that the whole natural production, they're about to close their Argyle diamond mines and some other mines. The Canadian mine is in trouble, and so the whole natural thing is kind of sketchy right now too. So you don't know, you know, is that going to drop prices? I don't think so. If anything, I think it'll
increase them because of scarcity.
Yeah, because of scarcity, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a problem with the created diamonds. I just think, once again, it's buyer beware. So,
and part of that, when you talk about that, it's ROI, right? Return on investment, that if they're making a big purchase, and as you mentioned, it may not be the same price, but it's not inexpensive. There's still a big cost there for the created. So as those prices continue to de-escalate and come down, then that could increase or decrease the value if you were to resell it or repurpose it.
Right. More and more companies get into that, and now there's a little bit more of a battle. You know, there's some major players getting into that whole thing, and so they could try and take over that market by, you know, really dumping prices. So there's just a lot of factors there.
Do customers have a good idea? I mean, if you were to look at both diamonds side by side, I mean, is it easy to tell the difference from the naked eye?
It's not very easy to tell. You know, I mean, we have equipment that can tell quickly, but for the most part, to the naked eye, not really. So
is it risky? I guess my question is, I know that you have the ability and you have 2 certified CGAs right there in your office. Now, you can quickly identify as they come in, and they can do their analysis and appraisal, you know, but how, you know, from a supplier standpoint, is it difficult to build that supply chain? I know it's a small world, as you mentioned, but how do you, you know, where are you sourcing from different places in the world without giving your vendors out, of course? But I mean, are they coming from all over the world, certain countries? Are there certain suppliers you've worked with that you have more credibility with and trust? Yeah,
I kind of, over the years, Dave and I always we didn't try and use all kinds of different vendors because we saw the advantage of being able to focus in on a good few vendors and provide as much business to them as we can. Therefore, we're becoming an important player to them. And so now when we need product, we need diamonds in a certain category, and it's us getting it versus a guy that doesn't do as much business, then we're going to, you know, we're going to have the advantage there. We're going to be able to get that product from them better than somebody else. So I have a couple, 3 or 4, 5, 6 really good suppliers that I work with on a regular basis for diamonds. Many, many more for color.
Yeah.
Which is just a side note. My favorite is colored gemstones. But But so I know those sources. We make sure that they're trusted sources, that where they're mining, and that they're being responsible from the standpoint of where those things are coming from. That we're not providing money for conflicts and
And how do you even? I mean, that opens up a whole political side of things. I mean, how do you even? How can you even get into that side to understand, how they're sourcing them or how they're getting them?
There's pretty good tracking now from the mine all the way to the cutter. And
showing that chain.
Showing that chain.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's become a big thing over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but I think one thing to understand is, in this stats from a few years back, but it's like the supply, the amount of diamonds that are really what they call conflict diamonds is about 2% of the total diamond production in the world. So it's a very small percentage that are actually in that.
But it's exacerbated as something much bigger.
Yeah, especially when movies come out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hollywood tends to do that to us.
Exactly.
So I guess, what I love about that analogy, I mean, you spoke about the relationship, you spoke about, trusted players, which is really important. And, the analogy for me as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, okay, throughout my history of being a builder, right, there's a certain amount of trade partners that we have that I really trust. And the reason I do that is for a few reasons. One, they understand our expectation. They understand what I want them to do. And, our desire, whether it be quality, site cleanliness, punctuality, communication, professionalism, all these little things are really important to us, and then I realized that, if I need something, which tends to be the case because construction is a tough industry, that, there are people that can perform and there's value there. And that's important for me to sell the customer on. Absolutely. And I'm sure for you too, is that you have to explain to the customer, over the years, now that you have the name Coffin Trout and you're a known entity and you have this impressive resume, it's a lot easier, but it takes time to get to that point.
Absolutely.
When did you feel that you made that turning point as a company to say, where you had that reputation, where people really understood the value of working with you, Randy?
Well, it's certainly, like you say, it's not something that happens in a year or happens in a couple of years. It's simply following that practice, like you're saying, and never swaying from it, making sure that you're consistent with that. And then just through customers and certainly suppliers, because that's one thing I'm really proud of is, usually, and maybe it's the same way in your business, I don't know, but retailers don't tend to talk each other up. I mean, I've never been a guy that's going to talk others down, because I just don't think it's right. But we have an unbelievable reputation in the industry from our fellow retailers, our peers, and we hear it from our customers that will come in and say, hey, I was in another state even, and I heard about you guys, and they said what great guys you are, and I should come see you. And so, we have that even locally to some extent. We have that reputation amongst the other our peers, and so that only comes from doing exactly what you're saying, which is just being consistent and making sure that you follow the practices that you would want others to follow, and
standing behind your product and your service and everything you're doing.
For sure. Above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
So, if somebody has a little problem, you just take care of it, right? You don't, even if it costs you some money, it's too important to make sure that relationship stays, therefore your reputation stays.
There's a lot of truth to that. It's interesting. I've learned over the years that it's pick and choose your battles, right? Some things,
exactly.
It is tough because we're always trying to do what's right by the customer. And to some extent, there can be on occasion some unrealistic customers. But at the same time, there are little things we can do,
right,
or incentives, or take care of things, or stand behind our work that actually goes a long way, that builds that credibility. And, that's they always say that unhappy customer is going to tell 8 to 10 people, and a happy customer will tell 1 to 2, right? So
exactly.
It's really hard to stay on the top.
It is.
But if you're doing the right thing, it'll continue to build that credibility.
It really does. Very, very true.
So let me ask you this, Randy, because I'm sure, okay, having the credibility and the reputation you have these 5, 6 suppliers that you've worked with. Well, maybe there's 1 or 2 new suppliers who are new in the industry. They're building up their credibility. They want to work with you and partner with you. I look at it this way, where I have maybe a set base of trade partners that I'm working with, and I'll have someone reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram and say, hey, Brad, we want to work with AFT. We want to be part of the brand. And I have to vet them. I have to figure out, okay, are they going to be able to perform to my expectation? They're known entity and background. So how often do you open the door to new suppliers that are out there? Because it still is important to continue to have that product and source that for you.
You never want to close your mind to that,
Right.
right? I mean, it's just you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, so to speak. So I think the key with us is we start small with them. We don't go all in, and we make sure that we do, like you say, vet them as well as we can, do background checks, talk to other vendors. We get names from them, customers, and not afraid to call those customers and say, I'm thinking about using this person. What do you think? Because once again, a lot of us are friendly within the industry, and so it's easy and they know that, to make calls and find out, these guys are on the up and up. And we just started with we had a new one today. So for some items that we don't necessarily want to build ourselves, because we build most of what we do. But in some cases, we have to buy ancillary product to fill the case with certain items that we don't want to spend the time to build ourselves. So
do you have a relationship base, and you've alluded to this, with other jewelers around the country? And I look at it this way for me, and this is where I'm a big fan of social media, because Instagram and LinkedIn have allowed me to connect with other contractors where, instead of making all the mistakes myself, right, I can go out, talk to them about mistakes they've made over the years and pitfalls and things that I can look out for to better my business. So, is that something that you're pretty open? How conducive to communication is your industry if they're a non-competitor?
Our industry tends to kind of lag a little bit in a lot of areas, software.
That's like construction. It's like the same thing as us. Technology, everything. It's like we're way behind.
All that, yeah. But fortunately, I've got a son who's coming into the business, has been for 10 years now. And he gets that whole thing. He understands it. And along with great marketing / social media / web developer guy that we have, who is he's young, he's vibrant, he's super knowledgeable, and really does his job really well. So because of that, we've kind of gone to probably a little higher level than a lot of jewelers are from that standpoint. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying that because of those connections, and because of my son and being younger and understanding that whole scene.
And he does a great job. It's funny because I'm connected with him on LinkedIn and Instagram, of course. We follow each other, and he does a great job with social media, which is very attractive, and it's amazing, the customer base. Have you seen success and results from being active on those platforms?
Absolutely. And that's one of the nice things is we do some major analysis on a biweekly basis with this young guy who's talking about, to where he's got it all charted. He can go back and look at all kinds of statistics and show us exactly where we've grown, how we've grown, what customer base we're drawing that particular time, what's down, what's up. The good news is if it'd been all up to me, we'd been light years behind where we are now. We've been in big trouble. So,
well, I will say in your defense, the reality is, Randy, in the last 5 to 10 years has changed very quickly.
Oh yeah,
and it is interesting. For us, we're on all the social media platforms, and I do the same thing. I track, and when I have a lead, reach out, and if it's whether it's a job for me or not, because not everyone who calls me, we're a good fit for. They may be looking for maybe a small bathroom remodel, which isn't our forte, right? And so, but I always ask the question, how they find us, how they hear about us, because it's interesting to see where the customers are hearing the name or picking up, or, where that lead generation is coming from.
Sure.
So is that something you're tracking too, just from the platforms?
Absolutely.
So which ones you want to be investing time, maybe money, but at least time.
For sure. And now we're about to kick in a CRM, which is going to be, really nice. To take it to the next level again, with
CRM's
where
really
it's important, our customer base, right?
Yeah, and CRM is really important for a company such as yourself, because you are going to have a vast customer base. You're going to have a lot of repeat clients, and so to be in front of them, whether you have different products, different sales, different items coming in, you want to be able to stay in front of them.
Yep, birthdays, anniversaries, all that information.
They love that stuff.
It's important to stay in touch. We proved that. One of my first salesperson I ever hired, she was a great gal, and she was from Germany, and she talked us into hiring her. It's like, we really don't need somebody, but okay. And she did a great job for us for over 20 years and retired a while back. But she we tell her, Bridget, you need to get on the phone and touch base with your customers. She just hated, that whole phone thing.
Customer service.
But it was amazing how each time she would do that and just touch base with people, how it resulted in sales. Oh yeah, Bridget, I've been meaning to get a hold of you, and I'm glad you called, and yeah, I'm going to come see you, and $10,000 sale later, $20,000 sale later, So she learned to grab hold of that, understand it, and start following those practices. And that's a simple form of obviously CRM, but obviously with CRMs, it's much more strategic and much more in depth than what I just said. But
so yeah, I love that you've integrated that. I think that's something I need to look at. Is one thing is, even though our customer base is smaller based on the amount of customers I interact with throughout the year, but at the same time, those little things, right. Birthdays, anniversaries, maybe completion dates, CFO anniversaries of their house. Right. These are little things that we could think about integrating as a company and, as a thank you to them.
It's the whole thing of going above and beyond, not meeting expectations, but far exceeding expectations. And that's what that accomplishes. And what that's going to do for you and what it's done for us is that individual that hears a friend or somebody saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying this or that or a piece of jewelry, they're going to instantly think about you. In your case, they're instantly going to think about EFT for that home that individual. Hey, I'm thinking about moving or thinking about building a house. They're instantly going to think about you if you've far exceeded their expectations. So.
Well, that's interesting. It's funny because one of the goals that I have as a builder is that, when the project's done, the client will still want to go out to dinner with my wife and I, right?
Yeah.
And we're going out to dinner with one of our clients tomorrow night, actually, that closed on their home back in January. Very cool. And so it's funny because you think about it, I say it lightly, but because it can be such a stressful experience, right, for both parties. And especially if things go in a way that's not desirable, it makes it even more challenging. But if you could be in a position where you're friends after, but take it a step further where now not only could you go to dinner, but hey, AFT, remember my birthday or our anniversary or house anniversary or whatever it may be, or with a kid event, I think there's a lot of value there. That's a value add that we can give our customers.
Yeah. Well, and to take it even a step further, one of the value adds for me in my business, and one of the things I've enjoyed more than anything else, is that whole customer relation thing, right? Because I've met more people than I can tell you that I've either gone to dinner with, in many cases traveled with, or gone to their homes in another state, or fly fished with, or, so what a great value add. I've made more friends in my business by far than I have outside my business.
Well, it's funny, as I mentioned, whether it be from bankers I've associated with, whether it be from, athletes, whether it be from Dave Clark, a mutual friend of ours, they all know, or golf, they all know Randy. And they speak highly of you, and you've been to their cabins up in Minnesota and been fishing. And so there's a connection there that it is a relationship industry, and it just shows, doing the right thing, being a good person, communicating well, just the, the effect that can have not only on your business, but just everything you're doing.
Well, to me, it's real simple. Why would you be any other way? Why would you not run your business like that? That's the enjoyment of the whole thing, right? So it's kind of like, the enjoyment of what I do or what we do, in that we build most of our own product, right?
So let me ask you about that, Randy, because this was one of my questions for you. Because with jewelry, do you customize most of the product that you're selling?
We do two things. One, we're custom shop big time because we have 6 full-time jewelers in the back, very, very talented people, and we'll talk about that whole thing in a minute. But that have the ability to take and create jewelry from start to finish. And years ago, my business partner and I, instead of just buying and selling, because there's not nearly as much satisfaction that for me, kind of like I'd go be a butcher or something, and sell bologna by the pound before I'd, buy and sell jewelry. It's the whole satisfaction that you get from working with somebody from the start and coming up with a combination of their ideas and our own design ideas and creating this piece of jewelry and then showing it to them and see the emotion, right? The tears or the smile or the hug for the husband or whatever it is, just there's nothing for me more satisfying than being able to do that. And I couldn't do that if I just bought it and sold it. So, and not to mention that it allows us to be unique, to create things that can't be shopped other places,
They're not replicated.
Not replicated. We came up with our own shape years ago of our rings that is shaped like your finger because your finger's not round. And it keeps the diamonds on top of the finger, keeps it from spinning on the finger. It's more comfortable. You don't feel the ring between your fingers as much. So,
and one thing you've done too that I'll explain is you also have for someone who needs to take their band off and maybe their finger gets swollen or something, you have another thing where they can stick like a little pin in and it pops open. It's almost like
correct. It's a adjustable shank or a hinged shank. Yeah. So we've got some of those items that we've produced as well. And so yeah, it's that whole side of it has been a lot of fun. It's ended up where we've entered competitions. We're now 14-time winners of an international award called the American Gem Trade Association. It's called the Spectrum Awards. And so we've won that, like I say, 14 times between my partner and myself. And, those are things to be proud of when you get recognized by your peers once again, and those fellow designers in the industry put you on the top of that list because there's, 400 or 500 pieces a lot of times you're up against in these categories. So
walk us through that communication, because when I have a client come in, they'll come in and maybe some of them are savvy, build it at home, some aren't, and they'll sit down and say, okay, Brad, what's your process? What's the timing? What can I expect? You know, and if we were to start today and we have our piece of dirt, I have to explain to them, okay, you're going to be 6 to 10 months to permit and engineering, and then we start on the house, and depending on the size, right? So if someone comes in, what's the expectation you're delivering for through design, through construction, before you deliver that in
which
product.
is tough because it's like, I want it now. Kind of a
they
thing.
come in today and they want to pick it up Friday, right?
It's like, can I have it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Especially once they get excited about the process.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's a lot of hesitation, about the process. I just want to see it. I just want to come in and be able to see it and buy it. And so it takes a little bit of work to get that individual.
So how do you expedite that? Are you doing drawings or artwork?
Correct. So we start with, and sometimes hand sketches, just to kind of get the basic concept. We use other pieces that are in the case as examples of certain types of setting or setting work, different bead setting versus channel setting versus whatever. And then we take it to the next step, which is to do a photorealistic rendering in CAD.
Is your shop doing that, the CAD?
Yeah, we've been doing CAD.
So very skilled staff.
Since the 90s.
Wow.
Way back when there wasn't really software available for the industry for CAD, for the jewelry industry. And so, but today there's lots of it out there. And so you can create these, without tons of effort. It's still, you got to be skilled. I've got a CAD guy that's phenomenal. And I work with him. I'll go back and take my hand sketch and say, okay, here's what we want to build, and here's how we're going to do it. And we make changes along the way. But then, within a few days, we've got a rendering to be able to show to the customers so they have different views of the piece from all different angles. Then we also produce a wax model on a 3D prototyper to be able to then show them, not pretty to look at, but it gives you dimension, right? It gives you, here's the height, here's the width, here's how it's going to feel in your hand. That combined with the photorealistic rendering is enough to say, yep, I like it, let's do it. And I will tell you that, and I tell them all the time, if you like the rendering and you like the wax, you're going to love the finished piece because it's so much greater than even these are. So.
And what does that time frame take? I would imagine, are you able to do the CAD and artwork in that setting, or does it take you a few days to meet? No,
it takes a few days, typically only because we're backed up, right?
Yeah.
Good news.
Which is good.
So we have to, put it into the line of things and get it done. And so within a few days to a week, we have that rendering, and we have, here's what we're going to need in materials. The rendering also does us, and the wax also gives us the ability to be able to tell what the weight of the metals are going to be. I can determine labor at that point, and so I know what my costs are going to be.
And that's what I was going to ask, because it's identifying your cost, your beta base, how much, metals or material are you going to use, whether it be gold or whatever it may be, and then the diamonds or gemstones themselves.
Correct. And then, we put our small little margin in there to be able to keep the doors open, and, and then say, here's what it's going to be. What do you think? And we have a really high success rate of being able to close sales based on those following that practice.
So when did you start integrating the artwork? I mean, I've seen, remodel companies, I've seen builders, architects really get involved, especially there's one architect that I really enjoy working with because what he does is he does the floor plan, the elevation, he puts it in 3D, and then he'll even show the customer, hey, in the middle of the summer, if it's 5 p.m. in the afternoon, here's going to be the sun, right? Here's the shade,
cool.
Here's the sun coming in your house, here's the glare in your great room, here's the glare in your kitchen. And then in the winter, in December, solstice, here it is at 6 p.m. when it's kind of dark, and so he can rotate. So then that way for overhangs and windows and glare, which is really important. We have a lot of sun and heat, so we have to hide ourselves from that in the summer. But, it's really good because I can see most customers aren't very visual, so they see this and it really engages them where they feel that they're part of the process and they're ready to move forward. And so I would assume that it's similar to jewelry, that now they're invested and now they're ready to.
They are. And once they're emotionally invested, that's when you get the, can I have it tomorrow? So, because then now the excitement's there, right?
So is there variation? So I know it takes probably maybe a week or a couple weeks or whatever it may be, depending on your backlog to create it. But now when it's in production, does it vary by piece? Are these 1 week? Are these 12 weeks?
It varies by piece to some extent, but typically we're 4 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on. That's good. Yeah. So, because you got the whole create the model, send it off for casting, have it cast into whatever metal, platinum, gold, whatever, get it back.
And are you doing that casting, or do you work with other vendors?
We did the casting for many years, and it just became a situation where, unless you're just really, really good at that and you have somebody dedicated to that, to me, it doesn't pay to have to do your own casting because you're constantly having to refine metals because you can only use that metal so many times before it has to be realloyed. So it has to be brought back to pure again, burn all the alloys out, the copper, the zinc, the, whatever, and turn back into pure, realloyed because otherwise the alloys start to break down. So we have a couple of casting houses that we've been using for years, and they do a fantastic job for us, and it eliminates that for us. And that process takes about a week or less.
To get that back.
Yeah. So.
And then the casting place, now are they supplying the metals and stuff for you, or are you supplying that?
No, they're supplying the metals. Okay. Yep. So the nice thing is, like with our platinum, for instance, we use somebody who came from the tech industry up in Portland, and she really knows her stuff. And so she does an extra step with the casting. So once the platinum casting is done, she takes it and she puts it into a isostatic, it's called hipping. So high isostatic pressure. And it's a huge machine with a little chamber about this big, and it applies all kinds of heat and pressure, just like we talked about with the diamonds earlier. And it gets all these molecules of the platinum spinning, and it compacts them at the same time with the pressure. So the finished product on that casting is much greater than most because everything's very compacted and very firm and very solid, and so you get extra life out of the metal over the years. It's just an extra thing that we talk to other customers about, that other step, an extra step that most jewelers don't even know about. And
I love that you shared that because it's fascinating to me. I feel like in our country or society, most of us aren't exposed to the creation or building things, right? And, even though I'm in the building industry, a lot of times I'm ordering product, it's delivered, we install it, and I get to see that aspect. But, going to Kohler, they took me out there and I got to see the manufacturing, and you're seeing, these blacksmiths in there, and you're seeing this equipment, and you're seeing everything happen behind the scenes, and it's amazing to see manufacturing like that. And think about it with jewelry, just that creation where you're putting this vision together and creating something for someone. I mean, there is, as you mentioned, a lot of satisfaction to that. And maybe that's why we're a little prehistoric, I guess, that not everything's off a line, everything's custom. So we can't move super fast because there's still some hand quality and time and labor behind it.
Yeah, which becomes, super important for longevity in the case of jewelry, and same with building it myself, right? I can really control quality from the standpoint of setting, how well the piece is finished, and all that kind of stuff. And I often have told my guys, I don't want a finished piece to come out of that shop unless you would hand it to your mother or your grandmother or whatever. If it's not that good, then I don't want it. So we just really make sure that everything coming out of there is just perfectly polished. The stones are perfectly set. The prongs are nice and have enough weight to be able to withstand the years of wear and that kind of thing. Because one of the things you had asked me about was maintenance, right, on jewelry and so on, and so it becomes people think that these metals that we use, they got to realize they're precious metals, right? So they're soft. They're not like steel or some of these other metals, titanium and all these hard metals, right? So they think that once they put it on their finger, they should just be able to wear it a lifetime and never have to look at it again, right? But unfortunately, we replace a lot of diamonds because people wear them to the point where the prongs are worn
break
off
or fall off,
broken off, and so on. So it is important to bring things in, and that's a free service that we do for people all the time, no matter if they bought the pieces from us or not, to check the prongs, check the tightness of the diamonds, make sure everything's secure, and we polish it, clean it, give it back.
That's interesting because as a business model, you're even doing this for customers that didn't buy their jewelry from you, but it's another way to maybe build that relationship with a potential client down the road.
Absolutely. And even though that takes time and effort, it's worth it in the long run, obviously.
So how do you
builds that reputation once again?
Yeah, which is, it totally makes sense why you have the reputation you do. So how do you, I guess, from a company culture standpoint, how do you retain, because you have, top artists and those working in the back, creating the product. Right. You have the CGAs, that we talked about, great appraisers, So how do you keep that staff with low turnover? That's always the challenge. How do you keep them happy?
Just treat them the way you want to be treated, honestly. I came from a bench background myself, working at the bench and creating jewelry, repairing jewelry, starting to repair jewelry and then creating jewelry and all that kind of stuff at the actual workbench. And so, I worked for a number of people, obviously, before I started my own business. And so I knew what it was to be an employee, right? So, and I've never put that behind me or forgot about it. So I make sure that, I tell my people all the time, as long as we're profitable, you're going to profit along with us. It doesn't matter if your salary has exceeded the norm, what we'd normally pay in the industry. Mm-hmm. That's not important to me. I don't even think about that. It's about making sure that I'm treating you well. And so we're very much a family. I've got people that have been there 24 years, 20 years, 18 years, 16 years, which is great for everything but vacation, because now they all have 4 weeks worth of vacation. It's like, what do you mean you have another vacation again? Coming?
Well, that's good. I love that company culture aspect, because I think the toughest thing as a business owner is understanding the value that, I've networked with a lot of contractors, and their biggest complaint is, Brad, we have a lot of turnover. How are you not having turnover? And I think, in the networks I've been in and the people I've spoken with, such as yourself, Randy, that have this vision that, look, we all are in business to be profitable, but if I can create a career for my team, my employees, where now they can own a home and they can be successful and they can have vacation time, they're going to put more into it. And it's that mentality that you're not trying to keep anything from themselves. And maybe the market may say this person should only be paid $70,000, but you're like, right. I don't care if I pay you $100,000. It doesn't matter if the market says 70, but by paying you 100, I'm going to keep you for long term.
Right. And if I'm paying you 70, it's because we're all doing well, right? It's we've all built this together, so we should all profit from it together, And it's funny you say that. I know we golfed together recently, and I rode with one of your staff, with Adam, and just, not solicited at all, but just the comments he would make along the way during a round about how much he enjoys what he's doing and where he's at, and how much you guys are just a family, and he really enjoys you guys like brothers. And that says a lot for you, certainly. And
well, thank you. Yeah.
It says a lot for your company, and you guys should be really proud. So,
well, I think it's funny, we learned the hard way, right? I learned as a young business owner, I learned being an employee, certain things that stuck out to me that I really had a hard time, where it's like I felt that I'd go the extra distance and it wasn't recognized. And it doesn't always have to be financial. I've seen where maybe, some of our staff is like, hey, my son has a cross-country race. Yeah, go take care of it. Go. Yeah, work will be here when you get back, and it's those little things that go a long way. Fill that emotional bank account for the team.
That and the attaboys.
The attaboys are good.
Yeah.
Take them golf, and they like that too sometimes.
Exactly.
Unless Randy beats up on us out there.
Oh, yeah, right.
So let me ask you this. One of the challenges right now, especially with COVID, is supply chain, right? And it's funny because I know some of my customers have worked with you, and they may come to you and say, Randy, I want this amazing Rolex. It's this unique, one of a kind. And I was with you actually at one event where my client was asking you, and already when he started talking about, you knew exactly the one he wanted, but it's limited. So how, I guess, what gives you the upper hand, or how do you work with vendors such as Rolex and other brands out there to get those custom pieces for your clients?
Well, it's become especially tricky since COVID, and unbelievably, the demand for that product has grown exponentially even since COVID, right? For whatever reason. People aren't spending it on vacations and other things, I guess.
Not traveling.
Yeah, so they got it in their pocket, and they've always wanted this item, so, hey, I'm going to do it, Unfortunately, they closed for 2.5 months, 2 to 2.5 months, and they came back at a limited staff, and they're still kind of somewhat limited as far as production goes. And so you can only do with what you got, right? So
so how do you work your way up the chain? Because you're doing this on an international level now, fighting against other distributors, and now you're trying to get the suppliers and get that product in.
Yeah, I mean, the good news with Rolex is you understand with their policies and so on that it's a regional thing. So I can't, when people call from out of state, I've got a certain, criteria I go through with them, and you really need to talk to your local supplier, that kind of
Interesting.
thing. So, yeah.
So if someone were to call you, say from Texas, want a Rolex piece from you, you may not have jurisdiction to sell that. They would have to work with the local vendor.
I would have had to have done business with them in my store
and prove
previously.
that.
Yeah, and be able to. And we stuck to it very tightly, because honestly, I don't have enough product to even supply who I want to supply now locally that does jewelry business with me, and as well as watch business. So, and that really becomes, honestly, it's kind of like anything else. I mean, you're gonna take care of the people that take care of you,
especially loyal customers.
Yeah, that's it. So those loyal customers are going to be first on the list, kind of a thing. And not that there's really lists, so to speak, but we make sure we take heed of what people are asking for. We're always polite about it. We always tell them, hey, that's a great watch to aspire to. Unfortunately, it's in high demand, it's in short supply, and we'll stay in touch as much as we can and try and fulfill your dream as soon as we can. So that's about all you can do. So
yeah, and that's always a challenge to work through. I'm sure with COVID, I mean, we're dealing with that too. And without getting into too many specifics, I mean, lumber and other things have really backed us up, and it's not definitely as desirable as maybe Rolex, but it's still limitations, right, that affect our business. And one thing, going back to the reputation, what has always stuck out with me, Randy, because I've participated in a lot of your charity things you've done, and you've been very active in the community for your whole career, and you've put on events and stuff. So talk to us about why you've always had that passion for the charity aspect of the firm and the company.
I think it comes from a couple things. One, my business partner, David Trout, was very much that kind of guy, right? That was always generous and wanted to give back. And I learned lessons from that myself. Not that I wasn't generous. I feel like I've always been generous, but the importance of that and how it can help to, it's not just one-sided, right? I mean, you help the community, but then it tends to come back to you too in the form of business at some point. And even if it doesn't, that's okay. The most important part is that you've been able to watch these organizations that you've given money to and see them grow, and see how the kids, because a lot of times for us it's kid-based organizations that we give back to. And when you see their successes and you see what it's done for those children, and how a lot of those children have gone from whatever age they were to graduating from college, and now they're in higher positions, places, it's pretty cool. And so once again, it's just a reward. It's an extra reward for us, is the way I look at that, to give back. And we've been fortunate and we've been profitable, and it's just natural. You got to give back. I mean, if you're selfish about that, I think it's going to pay you back the same way. It's not, you're not gonna benefit. You're gonna see.
Well, I think you're successful because of it. It's funny. A young mentor for me, and I've said this before, is that he was very adamant. I remember him pulling me aside, and I think I was just out of college. I had to have been like 23 or something, and he's like, "Brad, generosity will precede prosperity," right?
Yeah,
and it had a lasting impact, because he's one of the most generous people I'd ever met, and he's very successful. And I saw that you treat people right, you do these things, and it has such a big impact. And I can say from being there, I know you've done a lot of charity for a lot of the youth, and trouble kids and other in our area, and to see them stand up where they've had maybe no one in their home and no ability to get education, and now here they are graduating college and stand up and speaking in front of 300 people, giving a speech. I mean, it's moving, right? It's emotional.
Yeah, it is.
And I feel like there's a lot of camaraderie and there's a lot of good that's done from that, and appreciate all you do for that, Randy. That's really great.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and before we let you off the hook here, because, and to learn more about where our listeners can find you from social media, I think you've brought a couple pieces in.
Yeah.
To show us. And are these...
Yeah, you were asking about, unique pieces that I've created and so on. So there is an organization called Somewhere in the Rainbow, and it is actually just a couple that had an extreme love for colored gemstones and wanted to find a way to harness that and be able to promote color to the rest of the world, colored gemstones to the rest of the world.
Which is what you're a fan of, right?
I love colored gemstones. I mean, they're just so
unique,
special,
and
hard to find, beautiful. I mean, I love color, so I've had...
Is there a certain colored gemstone that you love the most, or a certain type of gemstone?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, not necessarily. I mean, I enjoy the finer sides of all of them, right? So whether it's tourmaline or spinel or topaz or, whatever it might be, it just depends. Sapphire, ruby, it just depends on if it's a really fine gem, that's what attracts me to it. It's really bright and vivid and, but this couple, they formed this organization, and they've got a curator, so to speak, that helps build the collection, and she commissions different artists and people
to do like
special pieces with their gemstones that they purchased and things. And I've had the good fortune of doing about 4 or 5 pieces for this organization.
Oh, wow.
And probably my favorite piece I've built, and one of the most unique, is this piece here.
So let's see that. So for those of you that are listening via the podcast, or if you download, whether they be iTunes or wherever else, make sure you tune into our YouTube channel. We'll do a little dedicated segment on the YouTube channel so you can see this. So this is a photo of one of the pieces.
Photo of a bracelet that I built that is a 18.21 karat tricolor precious topaz. It only comes out of one place in the world, in Brazil. There's only one mine, and
that place in Brazil is the only place to find this stone.
Correct. And I can't tell you how rare that gem is. It's extremely rare.
And you created this piece
given the size, the size of that stone. It was probably about that long. It is a large, clean, great, as you can see, fantastic color.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then I combined it with sapphires that come out of the Umba mine in Africa, and then diamonds, and we entered into the competition. It didn't win that year for whatever reason, which I was floored by.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
And so was everybody else. They were like, "Are you kidding me?" So this has gotten tons of hits in social media.
Oh, I'm sure.
When the Somewhere in the Rainbow has put it out there, we've put it out there.
We're going to have to do a post on this, so I'm going to have to get a picture of this, and we'll put it on our social media.
So that's probably one of the funnest pieces I've built. There's certainly plenty of others. The others are like this bracelet that I built, which is made up of spinels. All these colored gemstones are spinels from different parts of the world that have different colors, and with diamonds on it. And
I mean, you can just feel the quality and craftsmanship of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool piece, pretty amazing piece. So once again, unique, fun. A lot of jewelers wouldn't
bring that out.
It wouldn't take the chance to to build a piece like that, because there's a lot of money that went into that piece.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like building spec homes, right?
Yeah.
That are kind of out there, right? It's like
a lot of investment from your side.
Small audience.
Yep.
So, but I just love color so much, and it just so.
Well, and it shows your versatility. I will say on the positive side, yeah, there's some risk involved, but it shows people coming in for custom pieces, that Randy can do it.
And that's an incredible sapphire piece that I built. That piece did win an award, not with a sapphire in it, but a red spinel. So spinel is once again, like in the bracelet, it was a vivid red spinel with spinels on the side. This piece is all sapphire, so the smaller diamond or smaller blue stones on the side are sapphire. And then you can see on the inside of the ring It's got pave diamonds all on the inside, which is kind of unique rather than the outside of the ring. Kind of got that inspiration from a clamshell because it's got that same kind of shape to it, so to speak. And
it's absolutely beautiful. And I see the price tag on there, but I'm not going to tell anyone. They'll have to come in and visit you.
Yeah, exactly.
So where can our listeners find you? I mean, speaking about that, for them to come in and get their custom piece of jewelry, to follow you and see some of the craftsmanship you're doing on social media.
We're in the shops at Casa Paloma at Ray Road and the I-10, just east of the I-10. We're in a store right in the middle by Grimaldi's. I'll give them a little pitch. Yeah. And big Rolex clock in front of our store. And we'll be there for the next 6 months or so. And then we're going to move about 3 doors down into a 7,000 square foot space.
Good for you.
And expand our ability to show
to
more
meet the
items.
demand of your clients.
We'll have the largest Rolex showroom in the state then.
Great.
And
what about the social media handles and website?
coffinandtrout.com, and then I wish I could tell you.
Oh, it's okay. I'll look it up. We'll put it in our show notes.
We're on
and
Instagram,
we have it.
obviously. We're on
and I think
Facebook.
it is Coffin Trout Jewelers is the Instagram handle. So.
Yeah, and Facebook's probably the same. So, and then whatever other social media that my son's got us into.
Well, Randy, you're amazing. Thanks so much for sharing your insight on the industry and quality and everything else you're doing.
Thank you very much.